It's all right. Everyone forgets that.
Sorry,
Well,
Nick.
you
Sorry,
know,
Nick.
it's a new addition, and it's I've had 35 years of my life as just Priyanka Chopra, and most people know me as just that. So it's going to take a second. It's fine.
And I've been watching you for so many years since I was a kid, and obviously you were a kid too when you started in the industry, and so I've been hearing your name and saying your name for so long. But no offense, Nick, my wife is also the same. She has my name last on her name too, so people forget me all the time. So we have something in common.
But it's not
But
really forgetting you, Jay. It's forgetting your last name. There's a
true,
difference.
true. Thank you for the clarification. That makes my ego feel a bit better. But honestly, it's such a joy to have you here. I meant what I said when we first launched the podcast. You were one of the first names that I wrote down as someone that I was excited to speak with. And I saw a few days ago on Instagram, you posted a picture of yourself at age 17. And it was a great throwback. And I was wondering two things. The first thing is, what is a piece of advice that you wish you had at 17? And the other way around, is there a piece of advice or wisdom that your 17-year-old self would potentially share with you now, where you are today?
Yeah, I have actually answers for both. What I would tell that 17-year-old, I was bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. I'd just been selected into the Miss India pageant. I'd just turned 17, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be a model. And I'd never thought about that. My teenage vanity was piqued. And what I would have told that girl is, you know, um, just breathe and just chill a little. I was very hard on myself because everything that I've made so far, with the encouragement of my family, has kind of been self-made. I had to learn on the job. I didn't know anything. I came from in high school in an engineering background, or I wanted to be an engineer. Um, and life just kind of had other plans. And you kind of, are you going to swim? Are you going to sink? And I will always swim. So I've just kind of, I think that what I would tell, I used to really take it very seriously. I berated myself a lot, and I was hard on myself, and I would tell my younger self, chill out, time heals everything, it'll all be fine. And what she would probably tell me is to not get caught up um in my schedule and in the multiple things that I juggle, and not forget the excitement of doing what I'm doing. Sometimes it's hard, after you do it for such a long time. um, you have to remind yourself to be excited and be inspired, and feel sort of alive instead of it being a job. And yeah, I think that's what she would tell me.
I love that. That's a beautiful, both of those are beautiful answers. And I wanted to ask that to you because I think often we think like, oh, we have the wisdom now and we can advise our younger selves. But in the way you shared your answer, there's so much wisdom coming back. And I think that's a great reminder for everyone. Now, I saw a video again on your Instagram where you just received the book a couple of days ago. I had the digital version up until this morning when I finally got the physical version. So I've been flicking through on the digital version. It's nice to have it physically here. I'm intrigued that, what chapter of your life, you spoke about excitement there, what chapter of your life was the most exciting to reflect and write upon? Because it's such a fascinating thing to write a memoir. But which part of it was your favorite of going through?
My childhood, because I hadn't thought about it for a really long time. I was, in fact, just writing the memoir was so healing and weirdly sort of inspiring. I just remember never remembering. I sat down to write it, and I had never thought about what had happened in my life. I never looked back. I was only running. As you know, the entertainment business, our jobs are very transitory. It's not consistent, it's not stable. What you are, as much as your next job, you don't know where your next check's coming from, you don't know where you're going to be moving. So there's a constant like hustle, and you're running all the time. And I just never looked. And when I started writing the book, I was forced to look. And I was very excited to write about my childhood because I could taste it, I could smell it. I remember those mogra flowers, the Rat Ki Rani that used to be in all the army barracks. I remember, the feeling of the cold walls. They used to always be white. The garden, my bike, moving to a new city every 2 years. It was such a time of adventure for me, and a time of sort of unlimited possibilities. And I was raised with that. My parents always made me feel like the world is my oyster. I can go anywhere I want. And that was such a time of wonder.
Yeah, well, it's beautiful that you have such strong, vivid memories. And it sounds like, and I'm thinking about our audience that's listening and watching, or will listen and watch this afterwards, it sounds like everyone needs to revisit their childhood or remember and write a memoir. Even if it's not a memoir that gets published and goes out to the world, it almost feels like reflecting is really important. What helped you? Were you speaking to friends from back then, or were you speaking to your, who are you connecting with to reignite some of those memories?
Oh, everyone in the memories. I called my mom, my brother, my cousins who I grew up with, friends from the time. I corroborated the stories because memory is a weird thing. I remember it a certain way, somebody else remembers it a certain way. And there was this one story I remember. I was kicked out of MoMA for touching a painting when I was 15, 16 or something. And I remember that day being wonderful because we went to the Statue of Liberty after, and we got hot dogs and we were walking around New York City. And I remember it being like, oh, I touched, a painting. That's so cool that I touched. I think it was a Starry Night. And my cousins who were with me remember the day completely differently. They were tortured, embarrassed. My cousin was an art student. She was like, you got me kicked out of MoMA. And I was like, wow, I didn't remember that at all.
Well, that's brilliant. Was that your rebellious side, or was that a mistake?
Neither. Or was it curious? I was just curious.
Curious.
I feel like rules sometimes, and trust me, I mean, I'm in a public profession, I have to follow them. But, sometimes we conform to rules that just sort of stop our ability to grow. And unless it's like hurting someone or something, which by touching Starry Night, I probably was hurting the painting. But at that time, I didn't know.
Well, the value of the painting just went up. It just went up.
But otherwise I think you got to sometimes, you have to push the envelope. Yeah. There's been too many generations that have been defined by what people think, we can achieve, or, limitations that have been imposed because of people not being able to think or dream big enough. And I think it's every generation's responsibility to show the endless possibilities to the next.
Yeah, you've definitely done that. I mean, you're constantly breaking rules in your career and your journey, starting from touching that painting at MoMA all the way through today. But was that an energy and a mindset that you believe you had at that young age? Or is that something you think you gradually developed? Where did that confidence come from? Because when I hear you say it today, it comes with confidence. Obviously, it comes with having done it. And I think there are a lot of people out there who may feel that way, but they then also feel insecure that, are they the right person to do that? Do they have permission to do that? There's something that then still holds them back. What was it for you that allowed you to go all the way?
Well, two things. My parents, for sure. I grew up in an environment where I was not shamed for my ideas. At 12 years old, I told my parents I wanted to live in America with my aunt. And, my parents were like, bye, peace. It was fine. We had a logical pro and con conversation. I was raised sort of to have opinions, even if the room was hostile. So I think that really gave me a sense of self. And I think it's really important in parenting for us to treat our children like they're developing their own minds, because that's so important for them to have a sense of self and feel like, they're not robots, but they're actually thinking and they have a say in their decisions. It really lends for adults being able to have a sense of confidence. And second, to really understand and accept that confidence is not something you always need. You don't, so put it in a backpack. It's okay. Give it a break. Let it be in your purse. Let it be in your wallet. Let it chill for a second. Feel insecure. Feel like scared. Feel afraid. Feel vulnerable. But when you need the confidence and you walk into that room, you'll have it because you didn't keep using it. You didn't need to constantly have a, cover of, or sort of like a uniform of confidence. You don't have to always show confidence. You don't have to exude confidence. You don't. You just have to pull it out when you need it. And then when it's in the reserve, it's so much more powerful because you're allowing yourself to be all the things. I feel insecure. I'm terrified that this book is coming out. It's the first time I've ever written, and I've never been so personal in my whole life. I've been a public person for 20 years, never scratched beneath the surface. I've gotten away with sharing whatever I wanted to share about my life and not more. My stories, people think they know it, but they really don't. And I've managed that for 20 years. But I think I, now on the other side of 35, was feeling a sense of confidence and a sense of self in my capabilities, in what I bring to the table. It only took 20 years for me to get there, but I got there. And I think all those insecurities that I address in my book don't scare me that much anymore, as they did at that time. As they worried me, and I was like, I don't want to talk about it. Nobody needs to know about my life. And but now I'm at a place where I'm just like, well, it's still on my terms. And I'm hoping that people maybe get to know me a little bit more than a fashion meme or a headline or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's what I love about it. From the few pages that I've flicked through, I definitely see you allowing yourself. And that's the power of a book, though. And so I relate to that insecurity. My first book came out last September.
I know. We know
I
your
was
first book.
I was
I have
so
it.
oh, that's awesome. I'm so glad you have it. I was so nervous. So I know what you mean by that. And especially for you at this stage in your career, of yours is a memoir, mine had part stories. It wasn't a memoir. So I can only imagine. But I see you
Terrifying.
doing that, and books are so powerful for that. And that's why I really hope everyone who's listening and watching right now, if you're enjoying this conversation, go and pick up the book, because I do think that media, the news, the short meme, the clip, it portrays such a limited view of someone like yourself.
It's
And
a
here,
superficial view, really.
yes,
And it's okay. It's a choice also.
yes,
I want for people to consume only a part of me, you know? I want
yes,
to be able to preserve my humanity, my family, my life, my opinions. I may have chosen a public profession, but I'm not an elected official. I don't owe
yes.
an explanation to anyone for the choices that I make. You know, I'm
Mhm.
here to create work. I'm doing a job just like everybody else. Mine happens to be in entertainment, and it happens to have a lot of cameras on my face. It's fine. You know, I made that deal with the devil. So I've kind of made peace with the fact that I prefer it being from a distance.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I think now I've been a public person for more than half my life. It's my normal. And only now have I reached a point where I'm allowing the walls to sort of fall down and letting whoever wants to know me get to know me as the person that I am. Before that, I was very protective of who I was, because maybe I was insecure about who I was, or I still
Mhm.
didn't have a sense of self. I don't know. But I think
Yeah.
in the journey of life, I've reached a place where, you know, I'm good with who I am.
Yeah.
So
What's that's wonderful to hear, by the way, and I can feel it off your energy. What's the part of yourself in this book that you share that you think most people are going to be surprised by, where you think that people may just be like, what? Like, and I'm sure there's many, but what's something that stands out?
um, there are a few, which I think people may be surprised by that I was vulnerable enough to discuss. And I think my failures, my struggles, rejections, sadnesses that I've never really people have never seen. I always wear a brave front. Most women in like tough jobs have to
Mhm.
always have like a little bit more of a stronger front to be taken seriously. I built that very early, at 18, to be thrown into the limelight of this job. I mean, you know it. You've been in it for a long time. You know, it's a crazy profession. The expectations, the pressure, to deliver under that scrutiny, to be artistic, to have a point of view, to be unique, not, have your own trajectory, because that's the only way it'll work. Nobody wants me too's in the entertainment business. You want new kind of, you have to always have a sense of evolution. So it was really, really scary in the beginning. And I think everything just changes with time. And this was one of the good changes that came out of it for me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm hoping that, I wonder, do you think that's changing now if someone's coming into the entertainment industry today at 18, or do you think it hasn't changed? Where's your perception on that when you're guiding young artists or seeing people that you follow on social media, or, whatever it may be? Are you feeling it's changing? Has it improved, or no?
The pressure, you mean?
Not the pressure, more like you were saying, like when you came into the industry, you had to put on a brave front, you had to wear that face. It was the only way to survive. Do you feel it's the same now for young talent as well?
I think, well, I was talking about definitely as a female in
Yes,
the
yes, as a
entertainment
female.
business. Oh, as a female. Okay.
Yes.
I think so. I think, you know, um, it's still hard when you're starting out for women to be taken seriously, for your ideas to be given the kind of credence that a man's would as quickly, probably,
Mm,
especially in professions where normally you don't see women, because women have never been pushed in that direction, or women
mm,
have never wanted to go in that direction, because it was never normalized for them that their ambitions could go in that direction. Business, politics, to be heads of companies, engineering, like coding, policy making, like stuff like that, lawyers. Women have just about in the last few generations been coming to the fore, and are standing neck to neck with guys, but it's still an anomaly. It's still not
mm,
as normal in terms of numbers. It's still not equal. So until that happens, I think it will be hard for young girls to be taken seriously when they come into professions that are predominantly male.
yeah.
But it's okay. Women before us have fought the fight, and women after us will fight the fight. It'll just hopefully not be the same fight. Hopefully
Mm,
our generation will not let our kids inherit our problems.
mm,
As women, we are definitely working in that direction, but I think as the world needs to sit up and take notice that This demand is loud because it's a requirement. This demand is loud because that's what's right, and that is the reflection of the world. Women are 50% of it, and we should be reflected in every area. And basically feminism is that, right? Like, don't decide for me what I should be doing, when I should be doing it, and how I should be doing it. Just like
Yeah,
men have
definitely.
had that freedom, give me that as well.
Yeah.
So I guess it's that.
It's a
Sorry,
strong
we
message.
deviate completely.
No, you're not deviating at all. It's a strong message, and I stand by it. So it's a great message, and it's really interesting where male privilege is a really interesting thing to reflect on. I remember when I first started reflecting on it, it was even really a few years back, and I feel very much, I was raised by my mom, and I have a younger sister, so I'm very close to the women in my life. But it started to strike me in a crazy way that I grew up having had certain dreams of becoming something that my sister couldn't have had. And that wasn't because of the way we were parented, it was because of what you saw. And when that really hit me, and I stood and looked at that, and I often encourage a lot of my friends in that direction too. I'm like, if you really think about, if they have a son and a daughter, I'm like, if you really think about some of the options that don't seem available to your daughter, that she may never consider a career. And I really think that consideration is where the equality is, like the opportunity of even having that idea of
Exactly,
I could do
the
that. Or I could do.
opportunity of having choice. I think,
Yes.
a lot of
Yeah.
women, I am extremely privileged that I was raised by a feminist. I'm married to a feminist. I'm extremely privileged that my parents, which is why I brought up parenting earlier.
Mm.
A big reason I have a sense of confidence, and I'm on this side of the fight, because it's not as hard as it is on so many women around the world. I still had to fight. Of course, I had to break down the doors, and I had to, prove a point to be taken seriously. I was kicked out of movies and replaced, and all the things. But I still had it so much easier. There are women around the world that don't have a say in their life, that are married off when, other people decide, that people choose who they are married to, whether they can work or not, when they should have children, what kind of children they should have. And that doesn't mean giving up